I want to show you a clip that I think so vividly illustrates how these people function. That in their circles, you're just supposed to accuse people of being Russian agents or cozying up to Assad. And it doesn't even matter if you know why you're saying it. And the best proof of that is when Bari Weiss went on Joe Rogan in 2019 and Tulsi Gabbard came up, and Bari Weiss did not know that Tulsi Gabbard had repeatedly appeared on Joe Rogan's show and that Rogan really likes Tulsi Gabbard. And here's what Bari Weiss said about Tulsi Gabbard and what happened as a result.
Kirsten
Tulsi
Gillibrand. Oh, monstrous.
Monstrous?
Ideas.
Well, when she was 22, she had...
No, she's an Assad toady.
What does that mean?
She is
What's a toady?
I think that I used that word correctly. Jamie, can you check what toady means?
Like towing the line? Is that what it means?
No, I think it's like a...
How do you want to spell it?
Toadie.
What does that mean?
I think it means what I think it means.
There you go.
So just to be clear, so far when Tulsi Gabbard came up, Bari Weiss said, "What? She's awful. She's a Assad toady." And then Joe Rogan said, "What do you mean? What does that mean, an Assad toady?" And Bari Weiss has no idea what she even meant, so she's trying to get a dictionary definition.
Toady. Definition of toadies. A person who
sycophant,
flatters or defers to others
I
for
kinda used it right.
self-serving reasons.
A sycophant.
So she's an Assad sycophant. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's known about her.
Like, what did she say?
That's known about her. You don't even need to give a reason. You don't have to provide any evidence for that accusation. It's just known. Everybody knows. You listen to CNN, you listen to MSNBC, read the New York Times. Everybody knows Tulsi Gabbard's a toady of Assad. I don't even know what that means, but everyone says it. And if you ask me why, how I know it's true, I'm just going to say, like, it's known. What do you mean? Why? What do I have to give evidence? Everybody knows that.
We have to look.
Like, what did she say that?
We have to look.
Her?
I don't remember the details.
We
I've read
probably should say that before we say that about her. We should probably read it rather.
Well, I have read it.
So, do you see that what's happening here? This is what happens with all of these people. First, he said, "What do you mean by an Assad toady?" She had no idea what she even meant. She just was repeating what she was always said. And then when she said, "Well, it's known," he said, "Well, what did she do that justifies that accusation, that very serious accusation?" And she said, "I don't remember. I don't know. And Joe Rogan said, "Well, before we accuse her of that, we probably ought to know." She just got exposed completely. And it's not just Bari Weiss. This is how they all are. They have no idea why they call people Russian assets. They could never, if they were forced to justify it, do so. But they're never asked to, because in these closed information circles in which they reside, they're never challenged. It's just assumed that you're allowed to make that accusation. Here's the rest of this.
We have to look. I don't remember the details. I've read it.
We probably should say that before we say that about her. We should probably read it rather.
Well, I have read it.
No, I mean, we should now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Just so we know what she said.
Look up
I've had her
Tulsi
on
Gabbard.
here before.
Look
and
up
I really enjoyed talking to her. I like her a lot.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I like talking to her.
Okay.
I like talking to her. I don't know about...
I think she's like the motherlode of bad ideas.
Whoa.
I'm pretty positive about that, especially on Assad. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong.
Well, my take on her was that I think as a person who's coming from the left, who's also a veteran and is very articulate and sensible and a woman, and in talking to her, we didn't get into Assad or any of those things, but talking to her about what she feels is wrong with the current administration and the way things are running and a direction she thinks things could go in. She had some very promising ideas. I didn't know about this.
But doesn't she also, did she ever apologize for believing in conversion therapy? I
didn't even know she believed it.
Do you see what Bari Weiss just did? She got completely exposed, having no answer whatsoever to Joe Rogan's question on what basis to accuse her of being this. She's like, "I don't remember. I read it somewhere." And then the more Joe Rogan said, "Well, I actually like Tulsi Gabbard," Bari Weiss just got more and more nervous. She just thought Joe Rogan would automatically agree with her. At least in Bari Weiss's world, this is just assumed. This is how liberal discourse works. It absolutely is. And by liberal discourse, I mean establishment discourse about foreign policy, in which Bari Weiss is a complete adherent. I mean, can you imagine going around in public on one of the most watched programs in the country and accusing somebody of being an Assad toady and then admitting that you have no idea why you think that, what justifies that accusation, even though you just got done multiple times asserting that it's definitely true because everybody knows it, and then just slinking around like a coward and saying, oh, let's talk about her views on LGBT and conversion therapy that she believed when she was 21. This is what this discourse is. Now, to be clear, here's the Washington Post in 2024, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Buttigieg, MSNBC. Rather, this is 2019. Actually, here's the debate between Pete Buttigieg and Tulsi Gabbard when they were both running for the Democratic nomination for president in 2020, when Tulsi was still a Democrat, and Pete Buttigieg raised this issue of her having met with Assad.
And if your question is about experience, let's also talk about judgment. One of the foreign leaders you mentioned meeting was Bashar al-Assad. I have, in my experience, such as it is, whether you think it counts or not, since it wasn't accumulated in Washington, enough judgment that I would not have sat down with a murderous dictator like that.
Congresswoman Gabbard, let me allow you to respond.
Thank you. You were asked directly whether you would send our troops to Mexico to fight cartels, and your answer was yes. The fact checkers can check this out. No. But your point about judgment is absolutely correct. Our commander-in-chief does need to have good judgment. And what you've just pointed out is that you would lack the courage to meet with both adversaries and friends to ensure the peace and national security of our nation. I take the example of those leaders who have come before us, leaders like JFK, who met with Khrushchev, like Roosevelt, who met with Stalin,
like Donald Trump,
Reagan, who met and worked with Gorbachev. These issues of national security are incredibly important. I will meet with and do what is necessary to make sure that no more of our brothers and sisters in uniform are needlessly sent into harm's way fighting regime change wars that undermine our national security. I'll bring real leadership and experience to the White House.
I mean, this is so pathetic that in Democratic Party politics now, meeting with a bad person that you think is a bad foreign leader is somehow evidence that you're in bed with them. The most significant foreign policy actions of the last 50 years came when presidents met with who we consider to be the world's worst, most savage dictators. Tulsi mentioned when JFK met with Khrushchev at the height of the Cold War, when the United States had been involved in a Cold War, arguing that the Soviet Union was the evil empire, as Ronald Reagan put it. Nixon went to China, a country that he had been warning was a grave danger and a repressive or brutal regime for years, and then went there and opened relations there and met with the Chinese leaders and created arms agreements. Ronald Reagan did the same when it came to Soviet leaders, even before they collapsed in his first term, negotiating all sorts of arms deals. The idea that if you go and meet a foreign leader, even who's an adversary, it means somehow you're in their pocket or you're cozying up to them, is disgusting. The reason Tulsi Gabbard went to Syria was because she was opposed to the dirty war that Obama had unleashed, spending $1 billion a year, having the U.S. fight alongside al-Qaeda and ISIS in trying to remove Bashar al-Assad and destroying that country. And Tulsi Gabbard's view is, why are we in Syria? Why are we trying to fight Syria and change the government, which is Trump's view too. And so here the Washington Post is saying Trump's pick of Gabbard resurfaces questions about her 2017 Syria visit. This is what they all talk about. Quote, in January 2017, Tulsi Gabbard, then a Democrat representing Hawaii's 2nd District, took a trip to Syria on a, quote, fact-finding mission that perhaps raised more questions than it answered. Look at all this innuendo, this McCarthyite innuendo. Gabbard, named Wednesday by President-elect Donald Trump as his pick for Director of National Intelligence, wrote in a blog post at the time that she went to the country to, quote, see and hear directly from the Syrian people impacted by the devastating civil war there. If we're going to be at war with the country, you ought to go to that country. and see what's going on and meet with the leaders about how to resolve it. And, quote, she divulged, she met with Assad, whose regime is backed by Iran and Russia and stands accused of killing hundreds of thousands of civilians. The meeting with Assad, she said, was not planned, but when the opportunity arose to meet him, she did so because, quote, we've got to be able to meet with anybody that we need to, where there's a possibility that we could achieve peace. And that's exactly what we talked about. Gabbard met with Assad twice when she was in Syria, the Honolulu Civil Beast reported, citing travel forums. She first met with Assad for an hour and a half shortly after arriving in Damascus, and again for 30 minutes 2 days later. The Civil Beast reported it is not unusual for members of Congress to travel abroad or meet with foreign leaders, but it is rare for them to do so with leaders who are accused of committing atrocities against their own people or seen as unfriendly to the United States. Gabbard has likened her meeting with Assad to Trump's meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. It's unusual for members of Congress or U.S. officials to meet with dictators accused of killing their own people. Joe Biden had a fist bump and a hug with Mohammed bin Salman, the head of Saudi Arabia. He does the same with General Sisi in Egypt. Of course you have to talk to foreign leaders, including the ones who are adversarial to the United States. Now, just to give you a sense for how ahistorical this is, in 2007, the Bush administration had a policy of trying to isolate Syria, to punish Syria for alleged interference in Iraq. It's kind of funny when the United States invades Iraq and occupies it and is destroying the country, and then accuses Iran or Syria of, quote, interfering with Iraq. But that was the U.S.'s view, was that Assad was making it more difficult for the United States to do what they were trying to do in Iraq, and they were trying to isolate and punish Syria. And so Nancy Pelosi decided that she would go and fly to Damascus and meet with Assad, the leader that the Bush administration was trying to isolate. And obviously the Assad family, the father first and then the son, had been accused of all sorts of savage acts for a long time. And Nancy Pelosi said, I don't care what you think, I'm going to meet with Assad in Damascus. And that's exactly what she did. Here from NBC News, you see the picture, there's Pelosi, there's Assad. Pelosi shrugs off Bush's criticism, meets Assad. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi met Syrian President Bashar al-Assad on Wednesday for talks criticized by the White House as undermining American efforts to isolate the hardline Arab country. Now, here's the thing I think is most important when it comes to this effort to malign and demean Tulsi Gabbard's loyalties or patriotism because she had the audacity to meet with a bad guy, a foreign leader who was an adversary. In 2007, when President Obama, then Senator Obama, and Hillary Clinton had their war to see who would become the nominee of the Democratic Party, one of the big differences that emerged in the debates and Hillary Clinton tried to exploit was that Barack Obama was asked whether he would meet with a whole bunch of dictators without preconditions, including Hugo Chavez and I believe Assad and North Korea. And Obama said, yeah, of course. You can't ignore people in the world with whom we have differences. That's a formula for war. And Hillary Clinton tried to attack him as inexperienced and reckless for saying that you don't go and meet dictators. Here from the Washington Post, July 2007, quote, Obama debate comments set off a firestorm. Quote, Barack Obama's offer to meet without precondition with leaders of renegade nations such as Cuba, North Korea, and Iran touched off a war of words, with rival Hillary Rodham Clinton calling him naive and Obama linking her to President Bush's diplomacy. Older politicians of both parties questioned the wisdom of such a course, while Obama's supporters characterized it as a repudiation of Bush policies and refusing to engage with certain adversaries. It triggered a round of competing memos and statements Tuesday between the chief Democratic presidential rivals. Obama's team portrayed it as a bold stroke. Clinton supporters saw it as a gaffe that underscored the freshman senator's lack of foreign policy experience. Quote, I thought that was irresponsible and frankly naive, Clinton was quoted in an interview with the Quad City Times that was posted on the newspaper's website on Tuesday. In response, Obama told the newspaper that her stand puts her in line with the Bush administration. Now, I suppose you can have whatever sorts of disputes you want, disagreements you want about whether or not someone should actually go and meet with a foreign adversary, somehow that it's better to just not talk and not have communications with them. But even if you disagree that it's a good thing to do, if you think it's wrong politically or geostrategically, it doesn't remotely justify accusing the person who does it, who wants to go and negotiate, of being a toady of Assad or in the pocket of Putin. This is sick things. These are sick. This is sick discourse. It's so unhinged. And it's basically an attempt to just be like uber jingoistic to say that any attempt to speak with the bad guys, to want to do anything but go to war with the bad guys, makes you a traitor to your country. And it's exactly the sort of liberal mentality that has put them in an alliance with neocons and with the US security state, because that is exactly how increasingly they've come to think. It began with Russiagate, particularly the idea that Russia is this great evil, we have to destroy them, no talking to Russian officials, anyone talking to Putin is immediately suspect. It's a scummy way of trying to discuss people's character, but it's also an incredibly dangerous framework to say that anybody who speaks with a foreign leader will be accused of being unpatriotic, but that is the attack on Tulsi Gabbard. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.